This episode of Sports Addict Live brought to you by, as always, my friends at First Round Collectibles. With over 40 years experience, First Round Collectibles offers the widest variety of quality Beckett graded sports cards anywhere. Representing 10 major sports, First Round has all your favorite players from all your favorite teams at great prices. We are proud of our knowledgeable staff and top rated customer service, and our reviews vouch for our integrity. Visit us today at firstroundcollectibles.com and find your heroes. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins, can't relax. Original, I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they never ever mind.
And welcome back to Sports Addict Live. Mark Sauter with you after a typical Thursday night game. I got my bro all the way from Winnipeg. Winnipeg, Manitoba. We can't forget the province. Tom Brown, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing pretty fantastic, Mark. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
Yes,
Winnipeg. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say Winnipeg, Canada.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it is
it's
that.
just
I guess
like
the
Canada's just like
geographic center
one
of the country. You're from the center of the universe, so we got
Toronto
both. We
is,
got both. We
yes.
got both. We got both covered.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that people from Toronto just assume that everybody cares only about Toronto, which I feel like there is like a Toronto hate across the country. I don't know if it's true or not, but I can feel it in the air.
I think maybe Malays. I think people get. You know, there. I know a lot more people who are happy that Austin Matthews signed than are ever happy that the Leafs win just because we didn't want to hear about it anymore. Like paint drying and what's his name, Nylander? I don't.
Oh yeah,
I
dude.
don't care.
So you know what's funny about
the
that?
contract
And
of
so you know what's funny about that? And for the listeners who just want to hear about football, just bear with me for a second. So, well, hockey season's coming up. We'll be doing previews on the NHL soon enough, but so it was announced yesterday, and I'm not even sure why they announced it, but training camps began yesterday across the league, right, for the NHL. And it was announced that Nylander, who plays on the wing, that he will be on center for training camp. And it like took over Toronto sports media. Like, oh, William Nylander is gonna be like center, and like, dude, like it probably won't happen all year. It'll probably like it doesn't really matter. But that's the city of Toronto, man. Like the fact that he's gonna switch from wing to center for preseason became like it shut down the airwaves. It was insane. And there's some people, and I don't know if this is true or not. And if it is, then it's genius. I love it. There were some people that were like, yo, everyone's going to talk about this contract thing with Nylander. Let's just move him to center, and everyone will forget that he has a contract that he hasn't signed, and they'll just talk about him.
Chest, eh?
Yeah, that's what I mean, dude. That's Toronto, though. Like, we're the only. I don't want to say the only market. There goes my Toronto centric center of the world, but I feel like only in Toronto do we legitimately have a conversation about the third string goaltender for like 45 minutes.
Oh no, I mean,
is that you guys too?
Jets media is insane
here. Yeah.
Bombers media is actually borderline that crazy in the dead of summer as well. So yeah, it's just I mean, fanatics are going to be fanatical, right?
Well, and I mean, for you guys out there, like it's a little different in the sense that specifically for the Bombers, like the CFL here, man, like it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter
No, I
here.
mean, how many people even fit in your stadium?
Well, they
They don't
just
play in. They don't play in the artist formerly known as Skydome anymore. How many? Yeah.
no, they're in BMO Field now, TFC's field.
Oh, they're
Um,
they're in the soccer team stuff.
yeah, yeah, and it's a perfect setup because the dome is like 50,000 people, and there were
All facing the
legit
wrong direction, no matter what sport it was. Yeah.
right, exactly, exactly. And so for the Argos, like there would be like 5, 6, 7,000 people in just a huge toilet bowl in the
Just looks
middle of the city.
preposterous. Yeah.
Right. So, but no, like I think there's like 30,000 seats in that stadium. And the Argos do okay now. They do better now because the product's more fun to watch, A, and B, like the Sky Dome's an awful place to watch a football game. And when you're at a BMO
Very
Field
awful
right
place.
by the lake, it's a beautiful night in the summer. It's a lot more fun to go down there. But yeah, but I mean, like uh MLSE, who for those who don't know, owns like the Leafs and the Raptors, and they own a bunch, and it's like partly owned by Rogers and by Bell, and it's a whole thing. They basically bought the Argos for 6 million because like no one wanted them, and they were like, who can afford to lose money if they buy us? Oh, the Leafs. You guys can afford to lose
It's
because
just,
it doesn't
yeah,
make money.
it's a distressed asset, but I mean, like it'll be when they sell it, it'll be worth more. So
100%.
or the league or will fold, and they can write off the losses against the extremely profitable Leafs and the extremely profitable Raptors.
Right.
It's like I'm not. Nobody's trying to.
Well,
They'll be
dude,
okay.
like the Argos
Larry
are
Tannenbaum. Larry Tannenbaum's satellite yacht now has 3 satellite yachts. I think it'll
right.
be okay. Yeah.
He so like the Argos are like 10-1 right now, and they're I think I want to say the Tie Cats and the Alouettes are tied for second at 6-7, and the Argos are 10-1, and like no one cares. Like no one cares.
No.
Pinball just signed a extension to be the general manager for a few more years, and it's like,
How old is he now?
uh, I'm not sure. Probably 50s, right?
Well, gotta be more than.
You
You know
think
what?
so?
Would you? I'm just gonna use Google here real quick.
I love pinball, but I don't but
You
he's
know
an
what's sad? If
absolute
you look up Mike Pinball, he's not the first Mike Pinball
there's
that comes up.
you just gotta type
There's,
pinball.
there's somebody called Pinball Mike who's higher on Google's SEO than Pinball Clemens. The CFL's
Really?
niche for people who.
Oh,
That's,
that's hilarious. Yeah, he is 58 years
Pinball
old.
Mike is a bigger deal, and he's 58.
58.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
because
tell
he
you what,
was
doesn't look a day over 54.
dude, he is one of the best interviews to the point where when he hangs up the phone and you're done listening to him talk, you're like, there's no way that this guy is this happy. Like you can hear his teeth like through the through the microphone. You can hear him smile, but he's a legend
This
up here though. Like
this
he's
tiny
he's a
man, either this tiny man is the biggest liar in the world, or he's completely insane.
oh,
So which is it,
absolutely.
Mark? Which is it? Is he
Absolutely.
insane or is he a liar?
I think the former. I think
Yeah,
he's just
just
insane.
nuts. Just one of those
He's
guys
just
with the happy
insanely
feet.
happy.
Yeah,
Well, speaking of insanely happy, anybody who wasn't a Giants or 49ers fan was not insanely happy watching this game tonight. And it went how I feel like it was always destined to go. Daniel Jones, 22 for 32, 137 yards, no touchdowns, one pick. yards per completion. They let me see here. Breida 17 yards rushing, Brightwell 5 yards rushing, Jones 5. Just as we um figured, just can't get that running game going. Um and then on the other side, I mean Purdy 25 for 37, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. McCaffrey 85 yards rushing. Um Samuel 129 yards receiving, Kittle 90 yards receiving. Just an absolute beatdown, and 30-12 is probably closer than it actually was.
Yeah.
What did you take away from this game?
I really, there's nothing to take away. Much better team beats much worse team. It's what we figured. We talked about it before the game. The Giants just don't have it. Maybe Saquon could have made it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more entertaining. What would that look like though? Really, he'd maybe snap up a 12-yarder. Maybe he'd snap up a 14-yarder at some point. I don't know. They were just outclassed. The Niners are still healthy, and the Niners they've rolled. Giants don't have anything. They didn't look. They competed for about the first 5 minutes of the first quarter. I thought I was very surprised at the early third quarter touchdown. That kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But other than that, just a beatdown. The 30-12 really does not tell the tale.
Well, and there were moments in that third quarter when it became was it 20-12 at one point? Where you're
17,
like
it was 17, it was 17-6 at the half, so it was 17-12 after the
right,
touchdown missed 2-point conversion. Yeah.
and then made 20-12. So there was moments where it seemed like the Niners were kind of stalling, and it was like, okay, like maybe this can be a game.
There's
And then
stalling in the red zone, and then there's stalling in your own red zone. And the Niners, yeah, they'd like a couple of those field goals to be touchdowns.
I don't.
Rich people's problems, though, right?
So well, right, like I guess the thing for the Giants for me, like what were your expectations for this team going into the season? Because like that was a pretty hot topic, whether you're listening to like radio, satellite radio or sports podcasts or whatever. Like the over under win total was 8.5 for the Giants, and that was like a huge debate. Was like over 8.5 or under 8.5? What were you thinking for this team?
I was thinking, looking at their schedule, which is really tough, to start the year. I was
Yep,
thinking a hard under on that. Last year, they caught a lot of people off guard. I actually do think long term, Daniel Jones is a legit starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's elite. I do think that
he's fine.
he's not going to turn the ball over like he used to.
No,
This season early notwithstanding, but I think he's fine. I mean, Barkley's hurt, but that's a running game unto itself. The roster's just really thin. They got lucky last year. This season started with a lucky win at Baltimore, and they kept rolling it. I mean, you got to be lucky to be good, and you got to be good to be lucky. So
right.
it's not insulting to say that their record was above their level last year, just as the score in this game was above their level in this game, right? Like they should have been blown out, but they compete pretty hard.
Right.
I do think they're well coached, and so that keeps
Oh, there's
games
no
that
question
shouldn't
about
be
that.
closer. That makes closer games. That flips a couple of them. They're not a playoff team right now. They need a couple more drafts. They're just such a thin roster, so little talent. They somehow still haven't done anything about the receiver room.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like for me, like the biggest surprise in the first 3 weeks, as they're one of two teams that have played 3 weeks, um, is their defense. Like I know that the Cowboys are a like phenomenal team, but the Cowboys defense is what really like took that game over from the start. Um, Being down, 20-0 to the Cardinals, of course, that's the offense's fault as well. And I know the Cardinals, they have some like frisky pieces, I suppose. But if you look at yourself as a playoff team, then there's at no point where you should be down 20-0 to the Cardinals. Like if the Cardinals beat you, then that's one thing. But to be down literally to not score a point for 6 quarters.
Especially after week one, the Cardinals played. The Commanders are not a great team, but the Commanders are in the NFC East
I
with
like
the
what I
Giants. You
see
got to
from
be
the
watching that
Commanders, to
tape.
be honest.
And they played Washington way tighter than anybody thought they were gonna.
Oh yeah. Yep.
They Cardinals are. They're bad, but they're not. We've given up already. Bad, you know.
Right.
They're like the Panthers weeks 1 through 6 last year, rather than week 7 through the rest of the
Right.
season. You know what
Right.
I mean? They
But
don't
like
know.
my point is just that like as the Giants, like to
Yeah, you
say that
can't
you were embarrassed by the Cowboys week one is the understatement, the biggest understatement that I've ever said.
for
And
sure.
so the beginning of like last week's game, obviously like disappointing, but tonight too, like why I say that I'm surprised by their defense is because their offense, like what did you think was going to happen running it back with this receiving core? Like exactly what you said, right? Like you got like quarterbacks uh like Daniel Jones. Justin Fields is another one. I think the jury's still out on Justin Fields,
Yeah,
at
I
least for
think at this
myself.
point I'd rather have Daniel Jones, but yeah,
For sure. But my point's just that like he has no one to throw to. And like that
no.
was supposed to be Darren Waller, but the guy can't get open.
Well, and I counted 2 drops for Waller
Mm-hmm.
today.
Yep.
Bad, just not competitive drops even. Um, yeah, I don't know how they were a one-dimensional team offensively last year. It's the run game. It was Saquon and it was Daniel Jones. Give the league a year, they're going to figure you out, right?
100%.
And if you don't do and they didn't do anything to redress the receiver room, Waller be a fine fourth option in your offense, sure, but that's kind of your marquee addition, and you're coming back with nothing else. I don't
Right.
know.
Right. Well, I
I
mean,
think
tonight's game,
I think honestly they changed their coaching staff. They changed their GM last year, right? Dable and company came in last year. They did a phenomenal job. I don't think that they expected it. It was found money. They got the Daniel Jones extension was relatively cheap. They can get out of it pretty quickly too. I don't think that they're
yeah.
sold on him as the future at the quarterback position. Saquon they got on the or a modified franchise tag. That's a 1 year deal, right? I
Right.
don't think
Yeah.
they're sold on him. I think leadership in that organization, coaching staff and management, they know that this isn't the core of the next good Giants team. And so I think how well that they kind of acquitted themselves last year might have set the rebuild back a little bit. They probably were looking forward to higher draft picks and maybe more of them. But here we are. So they're going to play it out.
Yeah.
They're not going to look great doing it. That's not only is that kind of a not good team. That's a not very fun to watch team. They
No.
don't do anything interesting at all.
And I guess what just kind of like is disappointing from my perspective, for whatever that's worth, is like, you know, if what you say is true, which I believe that it is, and last season was found money, then it's like, okay, like we actually have some pieces here. Like, let's add, right? And I think like that receiving core, like to run that back. And like tonight, for example, too, like I know that they were down super early and they felt like they had to, throw themselves back to that game. But to have 8, 10, 11 rushes and one of them was by Tyrod Taylor at the end of the game. That doesn't matter. And
Right.
for Jones to run
Good for Tyrod though, still having a job.
for sure, for sure. But
Man got his lung punctured and his job stolen in the same week. Like, well,
yeah, it's a tough week. That's a
yeah.
tough week. But like
Not for Tyrod Taylor any day. He can come have
Daniel
dinner.
Jones had 2 rushing attempts for 5 yards. And in a game like this, you have to like he has to be able to make like
What
plays.
happened
This
to all
could
the
all be
design
for
runs?
not.
What
What's
happened to
that?
all the
Sorry.
design runs? You just
Right.
mentioned Fields. We haven't got to Philly yet. We'll do that later.
Sure.
But we're talking about the Giants right now. What happened to the design runs? These guys are all guys who racked up big yardage on design runs last year, and through 3 games for the Giants, or 2 games for the, or 3 games for the Giants, 2 games for the Eagles, 2 games for the Bears. Where is all of this now? 2 of those guys signed big money contracts last year, so I could see why maybe you're
Right.
protecting the asset. Although I don't know, there's an asset like Jalen Hurts, and then there's an asset like Daniel Jones.
Right. A little
Fields is still
different.
on his rookie deal, man, and that another front office that's changed over since they had their quarterback. They don't have anything invested in him. That was Nagy's deal, right? So where's where's the design runs? This is where these guys had, in the case of Fields, not much, but the limited success that he's had. Daniel Jones still had quite a bit of success. Where is this stuff?
Yeah.
What's
I
with
mean,
the play calling?
for Jones, I I understand it less. Like for Jones, like his like over under for rushing yards tonight was like 39 and a half.
Yeah, which
Like it
feels right, right? That's what I
right,
want to see when I'm watching
100%.
it. When I'm watching the
And
Daniel. Yeah,
especially when you don't have Saquon Barkley and you need to establish some kind of running game. Um, and like, and I know it's not quite the same, but we saw this in the divisional round against the Eagles last year, where Dayball just within the first quarter was like, we're going to lose this game by 20. We're just going to throw the ball for the rest of this game. And I understand, but at the same time, like this is football. Like 2 touchdown, 3 touchdown leads aren't um erasable anymore. Like I just feel like to only have 11 rushing attempts and like I don't know. It just seemed like your point. I don't really like get
in the
it.
case of the Giants, though, right? And maybe even the Bears to a lesser, different extent. You wonder, like, is it conservative, or is it just I'm out of options? And as a play caller, right? You just, like, what we have no playmakers. There's no
Yeah,
Saquon. So there's no threat of Saquon on the plays that it's not Saquon's fault. There's no threat of Saquon. So you know any D line, you don't have to be the Cowboys D line. You don't have to be the Eagles D line. You don't have to be the elite to be teeing off on Daniel Jones when
no,
there's no Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So maybe I don't know,
I don't
but
know.
it's pretty bleak in New York, not just in terms of I'd say not just in terms of that over and under. Over under. I hope you pounded the under because I don't see they've got. I think they have Seattle next week, and then they have a run of AFC teams. They're going to be owing quite a bit, I think, pretty quick here.
So I didn't bet on that prop, but I did bet on Daniel Jones over 211 and a half passing yards
Per game
um for tonight
for
because
tonight.
because I figured like the 49ers run defense, they've allowed 130 yards in the first 2 games. That ranks fourth. In defense in touchdowns allowed, rushing touchdowns allowed, they are tied for 10th with 1, and the first 9 are all at 0.
Yeah,
So it's basically second. They're it's a whole bunch of
it's
people
week
tied for
three. It's
first.
week three, but they passed
I
the
know
eye
it's
test
week
too. They
3, but
look
my
tough.
point
They look tough. They
is
look tough.
their run defense is extremely good.
And
So
Bosa's back, and
right.
they look tough.
And again, I know it's just 2 weeks, but their passing defense, they're 23rd in the league with 495 yards allowed in 2 games. So, and I know it's just week 3,
This is
but
week three.
like I just figured, like, you know what, like you don't
Well,
have Saquon, you got to find a way, like check down the ball, and like I thought Waller Um, oh man, I
Drop
didn't
Waller, yeah.
write it down, but I think his over under was like 41, 42, something
41,
like
yeah.
that.
I would have thought he would have had a good chance at a good game here. And I
100%.
mean, if anything, going into this game, right? I assumed that the Niners would win. I assumed that they'd win handily. I assumed that they'd look way better. I would have thought they'd have done a little bit better in the red zone, and maybe in that case, right? If the margin is a little bit higher, we get into garbage time a little bit earlier. We get into maybe some backup cornerbacks, some prevent coverage, and maybe those passing numbers for the Giants improve just because of just defensive indifference.
Right.
Those garbage time yards still count for gambling and for fantasy and whatnot,
Right.
but no such luck. Yeah, Brock Purdy kind
So
of Brock Purdy kind of messed you up here with red zone ineffectiveness.
so I to go off script a little bit, and we can talk more about it kind of later as the show goes on, but with the 49ers, like, did you see what you needed to see from Brock Purdy last year? Or were you still going into this year being like, I don't know about this?
It was one of that's I'm super glad we're talking about this. So that was one of the most fun things coming into this year for me was I have no skin in this game. I'm not a 49ers fan. I'm not a
Right.
49ers. I'm just, but Mr. Irrelevant comes in and has like that's crazy, and then he winds up with a baseball injury in the middle of a playoff game, and then he does
Right.
the experimental baseball pitcher surgery. What's going on? This is fantastic. Just as a fan of the sport,
Right.
right? I didn't know if he was any good last year. Kyle Shanahan's kind of he's sort of wizardish. So I don't know, but I think at this point now, 3 games into his second season, he's good. I don't know if he's a top 10 quarterback, but I know he's not a bottom 10 quarterback.
Well,
And he's
it's
definitely good enough, and he's got way more. Uh, he's way more aggressive than I thought he was. That I think that he showed early in
100%.
last year, and I think
100%.
he's growing into his position too, right? But like he's got, and those guys, that offense is behind him too, right? Like you can see that this isn't bad vibes or whatever. This isn't
No.
weird, you know.
And
I like
they
him. I like him
literally
a lot, and I'm like, you know, uh, man, Mr. Irrelevant. Like I'm going to be. Could he be the greatest 6th round quarterback of all time? I mean, there's another famous one who just retired or whatever, but could there be a new
well,
greatest
I
sixth
think
round
seventh
quarterback of all
round,
time?
right? I think
Probably not.
seventh round.
But that would be, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what what's fascinating to me about the Niners, and I talked about this in my first show a couple weeks ago, is that we are told and we say it's a quarterback league, it's a quarterback league, it's a quarterback league, right? And Shanahan has created this like juggernaut offense that is kind of proving that wrong-ish, right?
Ish.
Like not proving it wrong, but he's basically like between McCaffrey, Samuel, Ayuk, and Kittle, you have 4 guys that if you just get them the ball, then they'll make plays.
Yeah, if
like
healthy.
that is unbelievable.
Mhm.
And they're
And it's the exact opposite of who they played tonight.
right. 100, like literally you can't be more opposite.
Embarrassingly better.
And so that might be selling pretty short, but I think that they've just created this like where it's like literally you can go from Garoppolo to Purdy. And I bet you, and I do love a good bet, from time to time. I bet you Sam Darnold could do the same thing. Not the same thing, but I bet you he could be okay.
Hey, I don't know.
Not the same thing. I don't want to.
Seeing
Don't
ghosts
want to be rude to
has
Purdy.
a way of sticking in people's memories. So
What's that? Sorry.
Seeing ghosts has a way of sticking.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, that was a great line.
I'd love to. I mean, Yeah, I don't know if you were seeing Ghost that year in that game, I'd be worried about you in the NFC Championship game against Micah Parsons. Maybe a little
But
concerned, but
I mean,
but
like Sam Darnold is another one. Like we were
well, he
talking
was a
about Daniel
hugely high draft
Jones.
pick, massive talent, and then went to a crap factory in New
But this is
York.
what I'm
So
saying though. It's the same
they
thing with Daniel Jones, same thing with Justin Fields. It's like you get these players, you have nobody around them, and then you say that they're no good and you move
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Like Justin
Well, I mean,
Fields, like I I think that like it's hard to know what Fields is, right? Because
yeah, I have no
two
clue.
reasons. If you just, I mean, there's probably way more than two, but two things that like come to mind for me is if you just let him run around, he'll get like 175 rushing yards every single game and he'll get you touchdowns and he'll move the ball, right? But then you don't know if he is like a legitimate quarterback or if he's just running for his life all the time, right? And the other thing is like, okay, so you want to bring him pieces uh, and you bring in Chase Claypool, who I believe he's from British Columbia, like good Canadian kid.
I
But
assume
he's
he's from Toronto. He seems like he doesn't care.
oh
Oh
hey,
no, just
I mean he
that's just
might as well be from Toronto. We'll claim him. But
no. BC
like
looks right because he is a little.
what stoned?
He's. I mean, he's not moving fast.
No, he's just chilling. He's just chilling. And then
Yeah,
like DJ
I don't know what
Moore.
happened to him, man. He was great as a rookie in Pittsburgh, and he's
Well,
been just.
I don't know. I mean, having Roethlisberger is pretty nice.
I mean, that was the desiccated hustle. That wasn't. Man, Ben wasn't there, man. That was.
I guess it was a
There
different
was not
Ben.
a lot left of Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I guess that's
That
fair. I
was
guess that's fair. But
he
then you
was
bring in DJ
he was
Moore.
maybe even a step down from Brady last year at the end there. So that's rough.
Hey man, look at Brady's stats last year. If you didn't watch any of the games and you just saw his stats, you'd be like, "Yo, this guy almost got 5,000 yards, dude! Like, how did that?
Yeah,
That's insane."
amazing. Is point 0.6.
Yeah,
Just it was
it's
awful.
insane.
It was
But
awful. Yeah,
anyway, I think we've talked way too long about this game.
yeah. We talked longer about it than it ever was competitive. That's for sure.
100%,
Um,
100%. So let me ask you this: now that the Giants are now 1-2. The Commanders are in Buffalo this weekend. And a little shameless plug for first round collectibles. The owner will be there. He has friends in high places. He's getting a pretty special treatment. That's all I can say. I've been sworn to secrecy, but pretty big
in
day for
Washington,
first.
in DC,
Yeah. In oh yeah,
and
yeah,
the new
Washington.
owners, not the old owner, the new unhated
New
owner. That's
owners.
pretty cool. That's pretty
I
cool.
cannot confirm or deny why or who, but he is there living it up in Washington this weekend. Um,
Just gonna
but
assume Shakira.
what's that?
Just gonna assume Shakira.
I don't want to start rumors. The next like
She's everywhere, man. Everywhere cool.
Travis Kelsey, Taylor Swift rumor is the owner of First Round Collectibles and Shakira. It might get him in some it might get him in some trouble, but um I so that leads me to my next question is do the Giants finish at the bottom of this division? Because I'll tell you what, I find this Washington team, and I'm a Philly fan. I hate every team in that division. I don't like any of them. I like watching this Washington team, man. They're fun.
They compete hard. Riverboat Ron Rivera. You can't go wrong with Riverboat Ron. I mean, you can half
I
the
was
time,
gonna say, are
but
you sure?
half the time it's right 100% of the time. I don't know. It's I love him with his weird glasses.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good question. And at this point, the way the season started, I it's the NFC East. You follow it closely. I follow it closely. every year, weird stuff happens. I think it's the only. Now, don't quote me on this. I'm making up a stat here. It's the only division in the NFL that's had at least three ties in it every single year for 17 straight years or something like that. There's always something weird happens. But yeah, I could absolutely see the Giants finishing last in that division. I could see because that division they always have home and homes too, right? Like it's
Yeah,
everybody plays everybody twice in every division, both conferences. But in the NFC East, they get really into it with like home
it's
and homes
intense,
and stuff
man.
like that every year. Weird stuff happens. So I don't know. It's
Dude.
not something I'd ever bet on, but yeah, I could absolutely see River Runs boys hitting the over there.
Well, and like I like the
It's a tough
defense.
division though. It's a
It's a
tough
tough
division.
division. If Chase Young is playing for that defense has a chance almost every week.
Mhm.
But the offense looks fun, like with what's his name from Kansas City? Eric Bieniemy going there as
Yeah,
the new
I'm a big
coordinator.
Eric Bieniemy fan. I think that he's just. I'm glad that he's play calling now, so they'll show him on
Yeah,
in broadcast. He won't get on TV as often, but when they Washington rather than Casey, but when they do show it, they always show the OC right when they're the play caller. They show Andy Reid in Kansas City,
right. But Andy Reid's Andy
which is
Reid
nice.
too,
We don't have
right?
to look at Matt Nagy, but uh, but Eric Bieniemy is hilarious. Hey, I don't know if you've ever seen this guy. This guy is hilarious. He is. He, I mean, he had more than one coffee today. That guy,
He's jacked up.
yeah,
He's jacked up.
he's
But I
all over the
mean,
place.
like Sam
He's a
Howell
big
looks
boy and he's all over
good.
the place. It's fantastic.
I love it. But like that offense, like pretty good two-headed monster for running backs.
Mhm.
And like McLaren is phenomenal. He got me my fantasy win last week, so shout out to him. I know
Yeah,
it was specifically for me that he did what he did. Um, but I mean, the more that we watch this team, like
makes you
I
feel
like
nice.
this
Eh?
team, and with this division, I mean, we saw it last year. Like the Eagles were just rolling over everybody, and friggin' Heineke is what ruined the perfect season, right? Like you like anything can happen with this division.
This is insane, and the
Yeah,
weather is terrible. It's like the Eastern
it's
Seaboard is
awful.
it's the
It's
awful weather
awful.
in
I
this day.
mean, the
This
AFC
isn't
North,
the
same
NFC South.
thing.
This isn't the AFC West.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the Baltimore games and like Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, those games are always, I feel like, just disgusting as
They're
well.
fantastic. Yeah, that's barely football half the time,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. Let's see it right, but yeah. So enough maybe out of the dregs of that division. I think we could fairly say if Washington gets close, 17 game season, there's no such thing as 500 anymore, unless it's the NFC East and somebody ties. But
Right.
uh, I don't think I don't. I'm not. I don't love the idea of Washington as a 500 team or a 500-ish team. I don't. I really don't think the Giants are getting there. Top of the division. We talked before the season. We're 2 weeks in. The Cowboys are 2-0. Although Trevon Diggs is now out with a torn ACL out for the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
The
Found that out
Eagles
today.
are
Yeah.
2-0. Who's going to win the NFC East?
Well, so as an Eagles fan, this is a very conflicting conversation for me because, and I don't even think this is just Birds fans. I feel like this is pretty generic. Like, you know, everybody hates the Yankees. I feel like everybody hates the Cowboys unless you're a Cowboy fan, is what
Yeah,
like my vibe is. But with the Cowboys win against the Giants, I walked away from that game just like I didn't learn anything new from this game. Like the Cowboys defense is the best defense in the league. I feel like we already knew that. Even without Diggs, I feel like they're pretty
that's
stacked
why you get Stephon Gilmore, right?
100%. And
they have Deron Bland as their slot corner. Like they're okay on the outside.
they're okay. And I mean,
yeah.
Micah Parsons is not somebody that you just like double team and forget about it. Like he's a game wrecker no matter what you do. Like you can't stop this guy. He's been getting better year after year after year. So the defense is the best in the league. We knew that already. And we didn't really get a chance to really see what the offense was because they didn't have to. They were winning 26-0 within 10 minutes of that game. So it didn't matter. And then last week the offense looked pretty good, but kind of same thing.
The offense carried that game. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you have like Zach Wilson on the other side, and you don't have to score 30
But
points.
we also have. I mean, the New York Jets defense was considered one of the top. Is still considered
they're
one of the
great.
top people,
Didn't play
Dak
well
Prescott
last
threw
week.
all over them. CD Lamb made play after play after play.
100%. They didn't play well last week. So I just feel like
Sauce Gardner didn't want any of that anymore.
no.
They took him off in the second half because that was enough. It's early for a second year player to be getting torched like that.
And
that was rough. I do have we're talking about the Cowboys right now, yeah?
yeah.
I really do think and I really do think there's a huge addition by subtraction with Kellen Moore being gone.
This is an interesting take.
Kellen Moore, darling of the stat heads, right? And I like stats. I'm not anti that. Watched a lot of Cowboy games the last couple of years. Well, forever actually, but watched a lot of Cowboy games. Kellen Moore typically seems to think that he's the biggest star on the offense.
Right.
He wants a quick strike. And by the way, the San Diego, or they'll always be the San Diego Chargers to me. The LA Chargers
Superchargers
offense, their numbers look great this year.
Yep.
They can't hold a lead in the fourth quarter because the defense can't get off.
Don't even get me started on the Chargers.
They're tired. Kellen Moore's their new OC. This is what the Cowboys have been dealing with, right? Kellen Moore's whole point is to push the ball downfield. That's great. Makes sense analytically, but there's also game situations you need to take care of.
Sure.
There's a clock that you need to manage. And there's the fact that you have a whole defense on your team that needs rest, right? Kellen Moore thinks Kellen Moore is Jerry Rice and Joe Montana rolled into one, if you ask him.
Sure.
That's what he is. It's painful to watch. It's funny to watch now because as far as teams go, I do enjoy a good Chargers loss. It's like some people like
bro.
I
could rant about
like
the
a
Chargers
and the Chargers loss, a good one though. Like Jacksonville in the playoffs last year. That's the good stuff. Like against Miami this year, week 1. That's good. That's a good connoisseur's loss. Kellen Moore though, he's that guy. Amari Cooper used to be number 1 receiver on the Cowboys. They had to pay CD Lamb. Amari went to the Cleveland Browns in 2022, a team that was in complete disarray. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They just got rid of Baker. They brought in the thoroughly disgraced Deshaun Watson, who was suspended for 11 games. Their first national TV game, the national media catches up with Amari Cooper because everybody likes Amari Cooper. He's a smart local guy or whatever, plays chess in the locker room and all this. Like all the media loves him. They asked him, and you could see by the tone of it, right? They're like, oh, this is going to be rough. Cowboys are doing well, and you're in Cleveland, and this is a show, right? He's like, oh no, this is fantastic. I love playing here. This is a really good organization. One thing that I like is how organized the offense is. On Sundays, we run the plays that we practiced all week. Now, Amari Cooper's not out here saying specifically, I am so glad to be away from Kellen Moore. That guy's insane.
Right.
What he's saying was, you don't need a PhD in between the lines to be saying Kellen Moore is insane and he thinks he's the star of the team.
Right.
It was very hard. Like last year, you watched Dak Prescott, led the league in interception, tied for the league late in interceptions. Couple of things. A lot of those were tips, right? A lot of those were tips. CD Lamb responsible for a lot of that. A lot of that is because pushing the ball over the middle on third down, you shouldn't be doing it. When Kellen Moore left the Cowboys, a bunch of former Cowboys didn't say anything. No Cowboys said. Nobody put on. I guess it was still called Twitter then. Usually, when a coach
I
is
still
fired,
call it Twitter.
usually
I'm
when a
not
coach
gonna
leaves a team,
X.
players. I'm never calling it X. I'll call it
No.
whatever they're calling it Twitter now. Usually, any sport, when a coach leaves, especially a coach who's been there for a long time, right? He wasn't fired. There wasn't a scandal. They weren't awful, right? It's not like this isn't like Urban Meyer. This is a guy who was a relatively successful and like media darling uh, offensive coordinator for several years. He used to play for the Cowboys. A lot of these guys have known him forever, right? He's been around for Dak's entire career. He was third string when Dak took Tony Romo's job.
Yeah.
Not a single player on the Cowboys tweeted or X'd about Kellen Moore being gone. Like that yeah, read between the lines. Chargers are 0-2. Cowboys are 2-0.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Eagles. Let's go to the Eagles.
Well,
The Eagles
just
are
one
really
second. Just
interesting
one
to me.
second. Hold on,
Yeah,
just one second.
sure.
The only pushback that I'd have for you talking about specifically Kellen Moore is the Chargers are going to Charger. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is. It doesn't matter. Like, not that it doesn't matter, but you get my point. Like,
Oh no, but it almost
they
doesn't matter. I mean, they had Ladainian Tomlinson. What
right.
happened?
They like Kellen Moore wasn't there when they were up
Maybe there's
27-0
something
at
there
halftime.
that just turns everybody into North Turner. I don't know.
And just like a quick PSA, and on my next episode, I'm going to talk about this more. I already have it all written down. Never, ever, ever, if you're going to gamble, you're going to have some fun with a, Sunday or Monday, Thursday, Monday, whatever night. Don't spend your hard-working money trying to predict what the Chargers will or won't do. Just spend it on something else, like, I don't know, get another pound of wings with your takeout order. Do something different. The Chargers, like
Just
that,
parlay Chargers 300 plus passing yards with loss. That's
dude,
that's
that
what you get.
that loss, like they probably shouldn't have lost against the Dolphins week 1.
They
However,
absolutely should have lost against the Dolphins.
however, I mean, listen, man, that Dolphins performance in week 1 was incredible. Like, that was legendary. The Titans, after week 1, Tannehill's career was over
A team
in the
who was
minds of a
literally
lot
like
of people.
was nobody giving them a good offer in trade away from tanking
100%.
before spring
100%.
before training camp.
And listen, I
If
have
anybody had,
nothing.
if somebody offered them a fifth round pick for Derrick Henry, they're tanking. That's it. They're
100%.
tanking.
And
Nobody offered them that.
I got nothing against Ryan Tannehill. Like, I like the guy. He's had a perfectly fine career. But for him to come alive,
3 years, right? That's
to him, for him to come back from the dead and just like, it's just, and the Chargers do what the Chargers do. They come down, they tie the game. They're 1st and 10 on the Tennessee 14-yard line, and they end up kicking a field goal with one of the most electric offenses in the game. And you're kicking a field goal at 1st and 14, tie the game, get the ball, then go 3 and out. Like, the Chargers, I don't care who the offensive coordinator is, they're going to Charger, and that's all.
They're the Washington Generals. They're terrific at it. They're just terrific at it. They will snatch defeat from the jaws of victory
100%
every time. The Jags, the playoff game last year against the Jags was just one of.
I bet the Jags at halftime, when the Chargers were winning 27-0, true story. I think the Chargers
3 interceptions.
I think Jacksonville was like 32-1 or something like crazy. And I put money on it because I was like, this.
Yeah, so did we. Yeah.
Jacksonville's winning this game. the last thing that I'll say about that is I have family in California who are all Chargers fans, and I was this close to becoming a Chargers fan when I was a kid. And I went with Philadelphia, and I am so glad that I did. Could you imagine being a Chargers fan? It's just
No.
anyway, to go back. That's all that I have to say about that with Kellen Moore. I don't I hear what you're saying and I agree with you. I'm not in love with Mike McCarthy
No,
either,
no,
but I do
yeah.
understand what you're saying about him leaving.
McCarthy's not gonna put undue strain on anything. I mean, it's 2 weeks, right? They'll be in a close game later in the season. I'm sure Cowboys fans are going to be losing their minds for a completely different direction, for a
Well,
completely
maybe
different
at the
reason
end
than
of
they've
this
been used to
season,
losing their minds. But
well,
uh,
maybe at the end of this season they'll
there's only
put
one Andy Reid, right? So
maybe they'll put Pollard in center all by himself for him just to be embarrassed in front of the country.
break his other leg. Yeah,
Dude,
it's
I cannot believe that Ezekiel Elliott, and even as like a Birds fan, I got a lot of respect for him. He was a like good soldier for the Cowboys for a long time. Ezekiel Elliott's last play, I just cannot believe that was his last play. I can't believe it. And if that was Kellen Moore's idea, then good for then that he should be gone. But that was just I couldn't believe it. Anyway,
that
you were
was
about to ask me a question about the Eagles.
the Eagles. So Cowboys 2-0 have looked
Yes.
fantastic in both ways.
Yeah.
The Eagles 2-0, I think you'd agree, have looked pretty lackluster in their 2-0.
Yeah.
They let the Patriots hang around. They didn't step on their necks. Same thing with the Vikings. I got it when it was the Patriots. I understood Bill Belichick's had all, and he spent on it. This is an NFC offense that Bill Belichick wants to spend some time. Yeah,
And
it
you
was
got
gonna be.
four
It was
months,
always
right?
gonna be a hard. It was always gonna be a hard game for Jalen Hurts. It was always gonna be a tough game.
100%.
But what I'm worried about their defense. They brought back pretty much the entire offense, and I'm not worried about it at all.
No,
I
me
like
neither.
the Eagles have an incredible roster. I think that this might be. We talked about this a little bit off camera one time. This might be a little bit of not a rebuild or a retool, but like, and not even a necessarily an intentional step back season. This team is there's some old guys on the team still, but 5 starters are gone from the defense, all up the middle, replaced by 3 rookies and two
Mm-hmm.
decent, like average starters. But we're not talking the same guys who are gone, right? A lot of good, incredibly good young talent. Assuming that the Georgia Bulldogs are not Mirage, I don't think that they are. A lot of really good young talent, but
Well,
young talent,
Jalen Carter
right?
is
Young
already a stud.
and inexperienced talent, all up the middle on the defense.
Yeah.
Plus, and now I know it is Nick Sirianni's offense and it's his principles and it's his team, but a new
Mm-hmm.
offensive coordinator just means an adjustment, right? It not necessarily means them worse or anything, but before the season started, I thought that was going to be a bigger deal. I actually kind of thought going in, and I believe I put money on it. I thought the Patriots were going to upset them in week one
Sure.
because of all of that, right?
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Now, the Eagles don't look the way that they looked last year. They were an unstoppable juggernaut until they got stopped last year. They were a snowball rolling down the hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they don't look that way now. They don't step
100%.
in
Yeah.
two. In two, it's been 2 games, but in 2 games they haven't stepped on anybody's throat. Letting the Vikings hang around was weird, right? What do you think?
Yeah. So I think that the most concerning, I'm not concerned about much, to be honest with you. I think the most concerning is the middle of the defense. I think Cunningham played better against the Vikings last week than he did in week one, but he was exposed in a big way. Bradbury was hurt in the game against the Vikings. I believe he is back this week on Monday against the Buccaneers. And I was about to say Greg Maddox, but that's a way different Maddox. But Maddox is hurt and out for the year after the game against the Vikings. So the problems that they had down the middle of the field are not getting better anytime soon. I saw a rumor that they, and it's not necessarily the middle, but I saw a rumor that they are potentially trading for Buda Baker, which I feel like will be pretty interesting. He's not the player he was, but
That's
he is still a very good
no, but
player.
I mean,
Like that'd be, but so my point is
if he
that
was the player that he was, you couldn't trade for him,
right,
and yeah, and you're not, yeah,
yeah, 100%. So yeah, so I agree with you there that the middle of the defense is concerning, and I think it's probably the most concerning. On the other side of it, they did lose a lot of players, but I also feel like it was bound to happen that way. And if you're going to, rotate certain players out to bring like younger, cheaper players in, I think you would rather do it with the defense than you would to mess up what they have on the um other side of the ball. I think losing kind of like what you were talking about with Kellen Moore, I think losing Jonathan Gannon was the greatest thing that's happened to this team in the last
that's
decade.
that's
He,
really funny. Eagles fans,
dude,
they just hate Gannon.
listen, I understand if you look at the statistics
Mm.
that the Eagles defense last year was insane. Like 70 sacks and all these picks and return and like, but if you watch the games, the lack of in game adjustment is what cost that team the Super Bowl. Like even with Jalen Hurts fumble in the second quarter, I believe, of the Super Bowl, or was the third quarter? Can't remember. Even with that fumble return for a touchdown, the Eagles still would have won that game. And I understand that you got Patrick Mahomes. I'm not naive to that, but like Jonathan Gannon is like he just does what he does. He doesn't change the game plan. He just rolls them out there, and we'll see what happens. Um, and so losing him, like our defense last year was very good, strictly based on talent alone.
Mm.
So bringing in a new defensive coordinator, plus bringing in some new talent, it's going to take time
Yeah.
for sure. I would argue the only reason why the Vikings were in that game last week was because like Kirk Cousins does two things incredibly well. He racks up stats and he loses. And so oh,
Last year was a down year for him. His stats were pretty middling, and they won a bunch of games.
I know, but they
It's very
covered too. They
opposite.
cover the
Yeah.
spread too. That sneaky backdoor cover that sewered me last week. But um on the offensive side of the ball, I'm not concerned at all. I'm
No,
not. I think
no,
like listen,
no.
Shane Steichen, like where on the other side of the ball, Jonathan Gannon losing was a huge blessing. Like Shane Steichen is a very good coordinator. He's gonna do very well for the Colts. Um,
Already is. Yeah.
what 100%, what he uh did really well that I thought Johnson did well against the Vikings that he didn't do well against the Patriots was in game adjustments. Like what we saw from the offense in week 2 against the Vikings is what we're going to see moving forward is okay, the passing game is not working. Let's just run their faces off. And they did.
That's only going to
And
work against teams like the Vikings. Can't stop them. I mean, Swift isn't going to run for 175
no,
every week.
no.
We talked about it a little bit before, but what happened to the design run plays with Jalen Hurts? Is that did that go away once he got expensive?
I think a couple things. I think number one, last year he got hurt towards the end of the season,
Missed 2 games.
and they were steamrolling team. Don't forget, like they're 2-0, and I think the idea is, especially, let me pull up their schedule.
Yeah, banking those 2 wins, even though they haven't looked great in the first 2 weeks, they banked both those wins. You can't take them away for. There's no style points in football, right?
No.
Uh,
So this schedule, you have Tampa Bay this week, then you have Washington, you have the Rams, you have the uh Jets. So you could win all those games potentially. And then you have
you expect
Dolphins
to win all those
home.
games. The only one of those that I would even think is competitive is Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
And
Monday
I
night.
still expect that they'd win that.
And then you have the Dolphins at home towards the end of October. That'll be a good game. Actually, Sunday night game. And then you have Washington. Then you have Dallas, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, all in a row. So
That is wow.
That's death row, man.
It's a 5-game stretch.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what I'm suggesting to you is, it's week 1, it's week 2. Like, don't run.
No,
like, don't go crazy. Like, we need you, because he got hurt, I think, in week 14 or 15 last year, maybe 13. Yeah. So, like,
missed 2 weeks, came back week 17, I think.
Right. Like, don't get crazy. Don't get ridiculous. Just right, because like that shocked me a little bit on Monday, or sorry, Thursday, was just seeing him run out and he just like dropped. Like there was a couple fourth downs like that he hustled for and got the first down. But for the most part, you're right. He's not
in
going
the
for
the
it.
Vikings game though. There were a couple of times where the pocket was collapsing, and you could see on the replay he had a spot he could go, and he just didn't seem to have the explosiveness. Now, doesn't mean he doesn't have the explosiveness; just means he didn't explode.
Yeah.
But he didn't look like the same. He didn't look like the Jalen Hurts that were
I do think
used to filling up our,
yeah,
top 10 highlights.
I
Doesn't mean
do
it's not in
think
there. It just means he didn't do it.
yeah, no, 100%.
Something
I
to be a little
also
worried
think
about.
I think that the preseason conversation is a bit more prevalent this year than I remember it being in the past. I think that you're seeing, because there used to be 4 preseason games, right? But there's only 3 now, and not every team plays their starters.
Your starters play 2 series the entire preseason.
If that, I don't think Jalen Hurts saw like the field like once, right? So I do think there is some of that. There were, especially against the Patriots, like Dallas Goedert is top 5 tight end, right? And he got 1 attempt thrown his way and didn't, like, he has 0 yards, 0 catches, right? And so like, but there were times that he was wide open in the middle of the field. And so, yeah, there are things that are concerning, but I think what takes away that concern from the offensive side of it
is the extraordinary level of talent.
Well, that
huge amount
and they're
of extraordinary talent.
I mean that, and they're 2-0. Like when you have
those wins.
AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, that offensive line, which is the best in the league. I don't think there's. I mean, you can maybe say Detroit if you want to, but I feel like yeah. So I'm not concerned about it. I just think
there's no one better for sure.
I just think that when you, and I'm not going to do this fast math of what week it is when they play Dallas for the first time, but by the time you play Dallas and then, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas again, by the time you get to that stretch, you got to be smooth. And I think if you are 6-2, 7-2, whatever, just like then it's fine. You know what I mean? So, but yo, Eagles Twitter was like after Thursday night, Eagles Twitter was insane. Like
More
professional
unhinged.
beat, dude, professional beat writers being like, do we believe in Jalen Hurts? It's like, bro, I hope so. Just gave him $52.5 million. I hope you believe in him. It's
It's funny. I'm
insane.
not an Eagles fan, and I believe in Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is awesome. Have you ever
Oh,
seen him
dude,
play? But
a
he's
hundred
he's
percent.
very very good. Uh, Top five quarterback of the NFL. He's real good.
Well,
Um,
people were talking about like just like Justin Fields making that step like Jalen Hurts did.
no, he's not the same guy.
I agree with you, but what I loved about last year was when
Also, he
I
didn't have the coaching.
well, this is the thing, like when you look at the year, they got embarrassed by Tom Brady in the playoffs, right? 2 years ago. And but they got to the playoffs. They got there. They figured out that all we have to do is just run the ball every single time and we'll be great. They got to the playoffs. They got wiped by the Bucks. Then they got AJ Brown and they like got pieces. Okay, Hurts, like you didn't really have good pieces last year, but now you have like no reason, not to get better. And you just can't say that about like every young quarterback.
As a Eagles fan, are you a little bit worried about the smoke around AJ Brown not being involved enough in
No,
the
no,
offense?
dude.
No.
We saw that so many times last year
Yeah.
where like they're winning by 30, but AJ Brown's not getting the ball and he's just like screaming at Jalen Hurts, like, bro. And it's like Jalen Hurts is like,
Yeah.
bro, we're winning by 30, dude. Like, don't sweat it. As much as that game on Thursday, the Vikings were kind of hovering, that game was pretty much over.
Oh man,
And
it was ridiculous that it was even close.
yeah, like that game was pretty much over.
Close.
And I mean, you could tell that Jalen Hurts was like, yo, AJ, like, we're up by 20, dude. Like, you're good. Don't worry. And
We're
then
not
you
throwing the ball.
notice the next three plays, every ball went to AJ Brown because that's how it like goes, man. So no,
I
I'm not
sometimes
worried.
wonder about that when the next three balls go to the guy. You wonder if that squeaky wheel, like
A hundred percent.
Pavlov's dogs or whatever. But
But dude, like that happened between AJ Brown and Devontae Smith all year last year. Like you can go back and look, like Brown would have 130 yards. And then the next week, like Devontae would have 130 yards. And then the next week, like Goddard would have like 80, 90 yards. And they got so many mouths to feed and like stars want to play, right?
well, I mean, they have so much talent, right? The defense can only cover so much. If you're going to load up to stop AJ Brown, it's going to be a good night for somebody else, right?
100%. A
Yeah.
100%.
We just watched that. I mean, I don't know who the Giants tried to load up, but it was a good night for a few guys on the 49ers offense tonight.
100%.
For the same situation. Yeah.
All right. So we're moving towards the end here.
Yeah.
I
Well, but who's your pick? Who wins the NFC East? I know it's a long way out.
yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I did pick the Eagles. I don't trust Prescott. I'm interested by your take with Kellen Moore. I looked at it as a bad thing that he was leaving, and I'm interested by your take and curious to see. I do think that Dallas Cowboys defense is terrifying. I do. And so if I do think that whatever success the Cowboys have will be more because of their defense than because of their offense. Um, After 2 weeks, I'm not just going to change. But what I will say is that defense friggin' scares me. And like the Eagles could be 15, like 15 wins and 0 losses, and the Cowboys could be 0 wins and 15 losses, and they play each other week
The NFC
17.
East.
And I would still be terrified. I hate playing the Cowboys. It's the most stressful weekend of my year.
Watch them split their season series, wind up
Every time.
week 16 or something, and one of them will lay an egg against like Commanders, and that'll decide the division. And somebody lost to the Giants.
Well, that's the part of this that's so terrifying.
Or a tie.
I've like already said this
NFC
like
East
twice, but like the first time that you play Dallas, then you go to Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco,
That is so hard.
and then you play Dallas at the end of that. So they're literally like sandwiched between. It's like a friggin' Dallas sandwich, and I'm not happy about it. But so before we wrap up, though, you teased me a little bit at the beginning or before we recorded. You have a hot take about the NFC South. What?
Yeah, we're
hot
gonna
take
hang on to that
possibly
because I think that's a little bit more time than we have. But the next time I pop on, that hot take
right.
is not cooling off at all. So
All right.
So have me back, and we'll get
All
back
right.
after that one. That one's spicy.
We'll get you in the next couple weeks.
We're gonna chase down Stephen A. I got a hot one. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. Are you gonna do your best Stephen A impression or like Skip Bayless or something?
Like, what, block me on Twitter?
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did, didn't he? He blocked you on Twitter. That's so funny. I love
I don't know how to
that.
block
Well,
myself, but
yeah,
I'll just
dude.
delete the app. There, I'm blocked.
That's so funny, man. I don't know why I find that so funny. See, Stephen A is just one of those guys. I love watching him. The fact that he hates the Cowboys so much, like, is really close to my heart. Like, when the Cowboys lose and you just see him with the cowboy hat and the cigar and his like $20 million home, like I love it, dude. But anyway, Tom, thank you so much.
It's a fantastic show.
Is the best, dude. So I was home from work the other day, and I was watching my son. My wife went off and did whatever my wife does, and Boston, my son Boston was with me, and we're watching First Take. We're watching First Take, and whenever Stephen A would talk, my son would just stand there, just mesmerized by this random guy just yelling at the TV. Like, I love it, dude. But yeah, it's funny. But yo, Tom, thanks you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Much, how's the weather in Toronto?
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's been spring. It's been fall for like 3 weeks. And then today was like 33 degrees.
Jesus.
Which is like
a
lot in Fahrenheit.
We're having one of the weird things in the prairies where every now and again it does something nice for you.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like you beat a dog for 6 days and then you give it a treat on Sunday and it likes you again.
Right.
Stockholm
syndrome.
That's how the weather treats people who live in the prairies. We're having
dude.
It's been 23 degrees like all the time for 3 solid weeks. Mostly sunny. It rained a little bit today, but it's weird. Why would we ever get a nice thing? This isn't normal. Something
That's
real
beautiful.
bad coming around the corner, man.
It's going to be a snowstorm in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
No, Winnipeg. I like Winnipeg. I like the prairies. I like it out there. Absolutely. I do not.
You ever play at the Royal Albert Arms Hotel?
No. Where did I play? I can't remember. But what I can tell you is you'll never catch me there in like December. Or you invited me out in February. I gotta think about that, bro. Like the weather in February in Winnipeg. I think I'm good. On that. But listen, Tom, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you listening, another episode is coming within the next 24 hours, breaking down a little bit from week 2, looking ahead to week 3, and some of my favorite picks. Rough Sunday for me against the spread. Was not a favorable day for your pal. But thank you so much for listening to Sports Addict Live. Tom, we'll talk soon. And for everybody else, see you next time.
Not what she used to.